Yo guys, what's good? As here once again with another Exos Heroes video. Today, we're capturing the fire dungeons with all our power. Let's get into it. Alrighty, so this is actually the last part in our series. We will conclude it with the fire dungeon. Fire dungeon, probably one of the easier ones just because the fire units are pretty strong. They gain mana really well, and yeah, it's kind of easier, maybe because it's one of the first days. I just wasn't able to record this right on the get-go. We will only use legendaries and rares here, so let's go over some of them. You guys know Annie. She's a great unit even without the FC. She has 1 mana, all the deal damage to all enemies ability, and a burst ability. We cannot make use of the burst, so it's just a regular damage ability, but she has mana utilization, so this gives us more damage overall. She has pretty much the best gear out of all my fire units that are not faded, just because yeah, she's used in my PvP teams, and usually I use the Fade core. These are her stats. Next up, Otard. I like her. Counter, good multiplayer on the 8-1, and nice AoE. Unfortunately, also not being able to use burst. Her gear and her stats. Pause at any time to watch anything closer. So Scarlet, she just is a pretty much weaker version of Annie, I would say, in the regular form. If you have the FC, please use her. She's really good. Also mana utilization, higher mana costs, and not much more damage. So Annie is better used as a breaker, but we will probably use her in conjunction with Annie to show you that there can be a lot of cool things happening with both of them. Her gear and her stats. Deradan, he is one unit that I'm so sad that he turned out like pretty poorly. This explosion shot doesn't hit as hard as I hoped it would. It could be compared with roughly a 700% multiplier, but his stats are in general not high enough to warrant any of the investment that I did. Yeah, put him to 5-star, put all the copies that you have into him, and then just leave him be. He's good to raise your point score overall. He has the ability to skip a turn, which can come handy in the counter stages, so Lunar and Solar Trade. Yeah, we might be able to make use of that. His stats are here, and the gear you've seen before. Luke, in my opinion, a pretty underrated, underused hero. He's pretty good. He has a Shield of Loyalty, awesome. He has a Shield of Loyalty, awesome ability. He has block, can heal himself with that, and the Burning Hammer provokes a target on a low mana requirement. So that is pretty good. Unfortunately, has the green stone like a couple of my other units as well, which is unfortunate. If you have multiple copies of Luke, make sure you don't pick one that has a green stone before you invest into him. His gear and his stats. Next up, Xeon. You guys know him. He is a great rare unit for what it's worth. And yeah, he has a great 1 mana ability, and then he has a burst on 3 mana, which can deal a fair amount of damage, but it's mostly used for breaking in our case. His gear and his stats. Then Guter, another hero that could be so much more if he was an attack hero. He has a really high multiplier, no burst, so don't even bother putting him to 6-star. You're not gaining a lot from him there. And a Confuse on 3 turns with 1 mana. This makes him pretty good because he can help you rotate through the enemies in a nicer way. He also has Thrust, which is always great in my opinion for any of these dungeons. He doesn't have a lot of gear, so his stats are fairly weak, but you can see like his attack stat is so minus 400, so we're at 500, and he is close to that. So he's not really good as a damage dealer for you. Now we come to a really amazing unit, Carlos, and I say amazing because he has this 0 mana dot AoE ability. You heard me speaking about it in the weekend dungeons and yesterday's Light and Dark with Wilkes. Weiler has it, Colin has it. There is probably one in every single element, and these make it so much easier to progress through any of those. We will use him a fair bit because he's just that great, and I think he might actually be the unit that we will use in all of the dungeons simply because he's that great, and I want to show you an easy route, not a struggling route. Then he has a 4-turn mana gaining ability. The good thing with fire units is that even if we're constantly using his A1, his S1, we will be gaining mana and be able to use his S2 simply because our other units will crit. This doesn't happen with all the other elements. Like, I would say maybe Frost would be the next strongest in terms of that you would still gain some mana, and obviously nature, but you wouldn't want to have all your units get low if you don't have healers, and we don't have any. So he doesn't have a lot of gear, he doesn't need it, he just needs to be at 4-star to have some survivability, and yeah, that's what I put on him. He will be great either way. Corgi is another breaking unit. In all honesty, you kind of have to use him in 1 or 2 dungeons, I believe. If you don't have to use him, use Carlos instead. It's just much easier for you to deal with enemies. So this costs 2 mana, and then he has a 420 multiplier, which can help you if you gear him up to deal some additional damage. However, I don't have gear on him. Let's polish at least this one up so that he has some more stats. I don't think we need to use those 2. Brook can be a replacement for, I believe, Gutter. So he has counter, he has a 240 on 1 mana and a 420 with burst on 3 mana. It's pretty good. He is an attacker, he has decent attack stats, so it's pretty good to put some gear on him if you have something. So let's do this, just to deal a little bit more damage. And last up from the units that we want to kind of use is Zeradin. He has this 1 mana AoE, pairs great with any, and then 3 mana burst ability, which also pairs great with any. He also has mana utilization. However, because he's only used in secret dungeons and the Shelter of Sacrifice, you don't get much use out of him otherwise, so put him up to 5-star, level him up, give him some gear, but I wouldn't go further than that. If you have the FC for Heikin, please use him. Very strong. Without the FC, he's very bad. Too high mana cost for what he does. And yeah, don't use him if you don't have the FC and if he's not required. This guy is a pretty heavy hitter for a rare unit with a burst ability on 4 mana And then he has this Confuse. He also has mana utilization, one of the few rares that has it. So he can be a pretty hard hitter, especially because his attack set is really high for a rare. Last up we have Jean. We have to use him. Also not a unit you should invest into, just too high mana cost, so leave him be at what he is. Mr. Worldwide, worst unit in the game. Every time I review him or I see him, I don't review him. He is lower than he was before. He was at 2.7 when I started the game, then gradually trickled down. Now he is at 1.4. He is just bad, but you have to use him, I believe. He is okay for what you need him to do in that regard. Don't invest into him. Like, these reviews don't lie. Okay, let's get into some gameplay. Alright, so we will go into this dungeon, and this time we actually don't speed it up because it goes fairly fast and I can talk over it. So Jean is in the front line, and the reason for that is simply because I need a unit in the front line, and I wanted to take our before spoken about combination of Annie and Scarlet into the mix to just show you how it can work. And in all honesty, don't make the game harder than it needs to be on you. If there is an easy way to clear out all these kind of dungeon scenarios, just do it. It's more beneficial for you in the long run. It takes less time, and we can just nuke them all down. Use your abilities fairly often, fairly freely. You get enough mana to completely decimate the enemies. And especially because you don't have healers, you want to kill them as quickly as possible. So don't try to be like super frugal with your mana abilities and kind of think, oh, what happens if XYZ. Usually just burst through the enemies as quickly as you can to take as little damage while still conserve a little bit of mana for the next rounds. So here, for example, it's good to do auto attacks and then and just get our mana back. So we have full mana with our entire team, and now we go to the boss. This will be a quick one. What will he do? Will he kill somebody? Yes, he killed somebody, but that's fine. So you should know you only need 3 units of your entire team to survive, to always be able to break the boss. With 2 units it gets significantly harder, so you don't want to have only 2 units of your team survive. It might be possible if you have a stunner or a CC unit in any shape or form, but yeah, it gets ridiculously hard at some point. Oh, he evaded. Could have been dead. Okay, so that's the first dungeon clear, and we will jump right into the next one. And here we go. Kind of the same strategy. We're using Annie and Scarlet again, this time in conjunction with Carlos. And I mentioned it before, like Carlos would be able to generate mana. Obviously that only works if he's 5-star. So for my Carlos that doesn't work, in case you wonder. He doesn't get mana from crits. But at 5-star he would, and because you will use him fairly often, at some point that might be a good investment for you to actually do that. So I'm not too worried about them because they are all broken once Carlos gets a turn. And there we go. And now our wreckage can basically begin. There we go. Annie, Scarlet, they should be at full mana fairly soon. And okay, at least Annie is at full mana, which is pretty good. And now this round, the two front units, I didn't level them up much further than I had to. I think it's just that they're at 3-star with no gear. They just happen to be existent. And yeah, we can just nuke the enemies down and proceed as we want. Okay, and there we go. So hopefully the boss will target our weak link, yes. And we got basically everything done. Now it's just a matter of nuking everything down as quickly as possible, and we should have no problem whatsoever with this. Annie deals super insane damage, Scarlet deals super insane damage, and then Carlos just can come in and deal some mediocre damage, I would say. So the boss got one turn in the beginning, and in case you're wondering why I used the S1, or the auto attack for Carlos, it's just because it deals more damage than the dot ability, and we didn't need the dot ability. That's basically it. Alright, so the Ancient Goldmine, as always, a little bit tougher. It's just because the boss is really fast. If he gets his reflect up, you're pretty much SOL, and there's nothing you can do about that. You don't have enough fast units to, or faster units to break him, and yeah, you cannot do anything about that in particular. So here I just attacked into the one guy because I'm pretty much like fully aware that they will attack my weak guys. I have no idea why they always go for these two guys. It just seems like an AoE thing, an AI thing, that they always want to go for these guys. I played this dungeon multiple times, obviously on auto, but I noticed it. They always go for them, and it's really ridiculous because in the other fights that I had, they went pretty much random. They ignored that the frontline units would be an issue. So I don't really know what's up with that. It might be because they have a green stone or whatever. Targeting system makes no sense to me. Alright, so here I want to make sure we have a good amount of mana for the next 2 rounds. Xeon is fine. Like we only need one of the AoE units to have enough burst to not take any damage on this particular floor. And yeah, we just attack and deal damage. And now we want to use our single target abilities in order to stack up our mana. There we go. And we put a confuse on this guy. And we put a confuse on this guy. We want our AoE damage dealers to have enough mana. And that should be pretty much good for that. And now we can just hit against them a couple of times more. And once we're at the boss, it really shows, like, it depends what does the boss attack and can we survive when there is reflect. When there is reflect, there's so little you can actually do. It's sad, but really you have no chance. If the reflect is up, you will kill all your units. So we got lucky here. So So what we want to do here is we attack with an AoE, we eat the thrust ability, we attack with a single target because we don't need to worry about these two too much, and we just want to make sure that the boss is 100% CC'd. Okay, and now it's basically we want to single target the boss down as much as we can, and always watch out for the like rotations. So here we want to stun it. I don't know if that is enough, but as long as our Carlos doesn't get hit. Oh, our Carlos got broken. We still have one turn of burn, so we leave that up. And now we will attack into the enemies as much as we can. Critical hits can be pretty much a killer here. Attack this guy. Now I think we should be fine with Guter just eating the stun. And now we can go back into action again. It's a little bit trickier than most of the other ones because you don't have any heals and you need to be really wary of when the enemy attacks. So this was really good from that Guter came out of the break right now. This is one of the instances where nature break is not that bad. I mentioned that I think on another video, and here we can just put another stun on here, and with the next one we're pretty much good. Oh, I didn't use my ability, but that's fine. And we're going to use one more confuse. That was a misplay from me. I shouldn't have eaten the damage. That was a rather sloppy misplay from me. But it worked out in the end. So yeah. When there is reflect, you need to play around it. Don't attack into the boss blindly. Attack the side minions. Keep them up for as long as you need them to be. That's why I say don't nuke them, because you need them to survive. So I must admit, this stage is probably one of my most hated stages in the game. It's simply because the units that you have don't lend themselves for this kind of fight. So here I'm trying to abuse the counter mechanic into my favor, where I'm attacking into an enemy, they counter me back, and then I counter them, in order to, yeah, basically break through some amounts of damage. Here I will thrust into this one, and this is only to get them all to, like, basically be in a broken state. I will take damage from this one later on with Carlos. There's nothing I can do about that, but at least I don't get killed right away. So the most dangerous are, in my opinion, the counters. So I want to get them out as quickly as possible. So I will just try to nuke them super hard. And will do my utter best to just nuke them away in order to have a kind of fairer amount of fight for myself, because we don't want to take a lot of damage. If we can dodge some of the damage, that's always good. Here we can simply thrust into one of them, that's no problem, or attack into one of them. The thrust doesn't deal too much damage, and we will CC the next one. And there we go, have this one broken. We're on fairly low HP already, so I really hope that we can manage to get through this. So here we use our AoE to get some little bit more damage out. We will hit this one. We want to get as much mana as possible just for the next stage. So here we have 2 units that are faster than them. We don't want to attack with Otard into one of those because they counter and it deals too much damage. So we will attack into the middle guy. With Zeon we're fairly good, so we will attack one of them and get countered and counter them again. And then we got hit pretty hard, but we got thrust up, which is good. We get some heal over time. And I want to nuke this one away. Okay, great. Some share health. Share health in this dungeon has its advantages and its disadvantages, which is pretty hilarious if you think about it. So the share health will cause them to take damage, and because they might take damage from the boss who has an insta break, it will break your share health unit as well. It's kind of sucky, but there's nothing you can do about that. You still need to use the ability. There we go. We got lucky with a dodge and should take care of this. Otard is most likely dead. She's the lowest health unit. And I think this guy will just attack the lowest health unit. Oh no, it was actually our Gutter. Not favorable, because we need to attack into this guy before he gets the next turn. So we will do this with our Luke by using his taunt ability. Here we will eat a thrust and get stunned. We will back into this guy. Then use the taunt ability to get the counter. And now we can CC them. Okay, he got broken. And now we can lay on some of the damage, which is pretty beautiful. It's all about how we get through this rotation. So here we will attack with Luke again, but our taunt will do nothing for us, and it's just so we can use this ability without getting retaliated immediately. We use the AoE here just because it deals more damage again. Auto attack for damage and burning axe. This was pretty much the example of how a perfect run goes, where you get super lucky. This one I have no idea how to beat without FC any. So I put the FC on, and now I will just pick Corgi because he's faster than Daradan and he can provide me with an AoE dot break, and this is the way to go. I tried so many times. I tried probably 25 times, maybe even more, just to get to it, and I wasn't able to beat it a single time. I got close a couple times, and I'm pretty sure if the RNG would be a little bit more in my favor, that I would have been able to beat it. But 1 out of 30, 1 out of 40 runs, is not like a great chance. So sometimes I think you have to cut your losses. You have to cut your losses in terms of what can you achieve and what is not achievable, at least at the current stage of your gear situation. But just to explain you what's going on in the background. I have FC Annie. Corgi is my fastest unit. He will get buffed with the Burning Soul. He cannot get damaged while he has the Burning Soul. He cannot get debuffed. He's basically immune. And he has the ability on 2 mana to make an AoE dot for 2 turns. With that, you can break the entire enemy team without having to worry a single time about anything. Like you can see here, they try to counter. I get an attack in and I can pick whatever I want. It doesn't matter because they already countered, and then they're broken. And I can do whatever I want. This works down until the boss stage. So really ridiculous. Even if the boss in the boss stage tries to hit anything of your units, it doesn't matter. Like, you have enough units to deal with him. Any unit that he wants to kill, he can kill. It doesn't matter, because the only unit you really need is Corgi, and you need 2 or 3 other units to basically dish out damage. You can see here, he attacks, I think, Annie. Yeah, he doesn't kill her because she has good gear. And now, exactly the same procedure. There the Burning Soul went actually off. I don't exactly know why it did that. But it doesn't matter for me. So, because boss is done, and you can see like side minions down, and then I just lay on heavy damage, and it's cleared quicker than most of the other things, just because FC Annie. I really wish I had a better solution, but I don't have one. With my current gear situation, I probably would need to equip at least 1 or 2 faded pieces on each unit and level up their gear to unreasonable standards for where I'm at the game. Okay, so this was this dungeon. Let's go over the next one. This is another really easy one. So I just picked random units. It doesn't matter what you pick. This one is super easy. I picked Carlos because he's just super nice to work with in order to break enemy units. And then I picked Xeon because everybody had him, and Otard because I like her. You could have picked double AoE damage dealers like Annie and Scarlet, or anything you want. It would be fine for this stage. Yeah, I will speed this up in order for us to get moving. I'm a little bit disappointed by my performance because I wanted to beat it, but I couldn't, like the previous one. However, I still hope that you get a good amount of information out of this video, because everything I said still holds true, and I think I made it very clear that the lunar one is just based on too much RNG to be reasonable to be dealt with. In future stages where we get more gear, where we get maybe more units to play around with, this might be something to look into. For early game players, unfortunately, Luna and Solar are probably not gonna be beatable. With that said, I think getting 4 out of 6 dungeons like fairly easily done, is still really good and allows early game players to grind up those faded gear pieces. And even if you don't have the super OP units, you can equip the faded gear on your regular units and then beat it at a different stage. Everybody progresses a little bit differently, so depending on what units you have, you might be able to just burst through it. If you enjoy what I'm doing and how I try to explain everything, consider leaving a sub. I try to make more guides for future upcoming content, for current content, and leaving a like, leaving a comment also helps out so much. As always, it was a great pleasure to have you here, and I will see you in the next one. Until then, enjoy the grind.